On the Portal Podcast, we're going to be discussing Ohio State, Louisville, and UCF commitments, and Stanford loses another talented player to the transfer portal.
Locked On presents The Portal, the daily podcast covering college football recruiting and everything NIL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back into the Portal Podcast, where you get your daily recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. I'm your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Head over to 5hourenergy.com to find over 15 flavors to choose from. If you need one now, you can grab one at your local grocery store or at your local convenience store. Stock up today and stay energized. We've got commitments for the Buckeyes, for the Louisville Cardinal, and the UCF Knights. And this is a very good sign of things to come in terms of recruiting news. We're about to see the avalanche. So let's get started with Mr. Caldwell, maybe the best player at the bowl school, and that's saying something. They also had a recruitment go really well for them in regards to Sparks. J.J. Sparks, another kid, he committed to Miami. We can add him to the list. But SimeonCaldwell is a safety or a linebacker that was recruited nationally. And he's a kid that, honestly, I don't know what position he's going to play, and that's all right. He's about 190 pounds. He can run. He's very instinctive. His father played in the NFL for roughly 10 years, and he's been coaching for about 10 years. I believe he's with the Buccaneers now as a linebackers coach. So he's from an NFL family. The genetics are elite. Ohio State, Florida State, Notre Dame, and schools all over wanted Caldwell. He ended up picking the Buckeyes, I believe, over the Irish, but there are other schools that certainly could have come in second as well. It ends up being Ohio State, where he has family ties. His family is really deep into the football world, but we'll get into that on another pod. The bigger thing here, Ohio State dips into Florida again. The Ohio State Buckeyes always seem to land a couple of guys out of Florida that are coveted by all the schools inside the state, including the big three, Miami, Florida, Florida State. He could have picked any of those schools. Notre Dame could have went to Michigan or a Southern Cal, whatever he wanted to do. But Caldwell picks Ohio State. What is it about that program that the Florida kids don't mind going north? It's really unique because every year they get somebody. Obviously, the easy pick is Jeremiah Smith. But anyway, here's the second part of Caldwell's commitment to the Buckeyes. He's going to start out in the secondary at strong safety. In today's world, how valuable is a guy that could possibly play strong safety, possibly play over the slot, and then eventually end up in the box play-to-play as a weak side linebacker? I think that's eventually where he'll end up after he gains 25, 30 pounds, but we'll see. Today's world of college football, you're in nickel as your base, and sometimes you're in dime as your base. If the other team comes out on play one of a drive and 4 wide, one running back, you might go that route if they got some speedy guys out there. Caldwell is a guy that can be on the field no matter if you're in your base defense at a 4-3, 4-2-5, or if you're in dime, because he could play different spots. Really smart kid. And by the way, he's a super young man. From interviewing him, that's the kind of guy I want to be around. Finally, with him, this is a kid that I think will play immediately in Columbus as a special teams member. He's a team-first guy from the Bowl School in Jacksonville, one of the best programs, not only in the Sunshine State, but down south. It's a boarding school where everything is a little bit more serious in terms of academics and how you handle your day. Mature kids end up at that program. I expect him to take that maturity. And again, he's from a family that understands football. Go to Ohio State and make an impact. SimeonCaldwell is a great kid. Good luck to him and his future, regardless of what position or positions that he plays. And again, I think he'll play multiple at the very least. So he will be a Buckeye. Next up, this is a receiver that's gone a little bit under the radar. I was surprised he didn't have more offers. Miami and Maryland and a few other schools at the P4 level were after him. But Gavin Waddell out of Rollsville High School in North Carolina commits to the Louisville Cardinal. He's a guy that's twitchy at the line. He's good at beating press coverage, and he's got the speed to go deep, but not that many offers from the P4. I was surprised. He's underrated, in my opinion. And there are other players at his program going to the college level. It's quarterback from last year, Simon Mercer. There are a couple of guys at his high school in his class that are elite level guys, go to the SEC or maybe ACC, Notre Dame, whatever. that's a program that's got a lot of schools coming through. So I'm surprised. And I would not be surprised at all if he got more offers, especially during his senior year, because Waddell, again, he can go deep. You're always looking for receivers that can do that. And he has the speed. So 175, 180 pounds is about what I project him to be based on his junior film. I don't know how big he's gotten now, but he can go. And again, he's a guy that will beat you down the field. Louisville now has 2 receivers in their recruiting class that are definitively that way. And I haven't watched all their skill guys in their 26 class, but it's a good start. They got a kid out of Archbishop Hoban and Akron that can really run. They've got a couple other guys that can play running back, receiver, DB. Maybe another one ends up at receiver long term. But Brom knows how to find receivers. I would not be surprised if there were schools, especially in North Carolina, because the young man is from the state of North Carolina, that end up being upset with themselves that they didn't make a bigger play for him. We'll see. Then again, maybe one of them comes back around. Maybe it's NC State, maybe it's Duke, maybe it's North Carolina, whatever the case may be. I like Waddell quite a bit. Finally, Tyron Wortham has committed to the UCF Knights. He is from Booker High School in Sarasota, Florida. I had the opportunity to watch him play at Under Armour during their camp series in Florida, and he's really good. I didn't know anything about him prior to that Under Armour camp, and that's why going and seeing these events is so important and why it's important for the young men to actually show up and compete and do one-on-ones and do all the things, all the testing. And I did say all the testing, but at the same time, winning reps over and over, there is nothing more important than winning one-on-ones. He's a guy that beats people, whether it's at the line, down the field on his break, or at the catch point. He is a 3-pronged receiver in that regard. At the line of scrimmage, he changes his moves. At the top of his route, he will make a sharp cut. And in finalizing the play with the catch, he can bring the ball in after he goes away from his body. He doesn't let it come into his body to make catches. So I think Wortham's probably a slot, but he might grow into a guy that can play outside. But right off the bat, I'd put him in the slot. That's just my opinion. And UCF, Scott Frost is going to need some more receivers. It's going to need some more speed. This is the kind of player that he took when he was at UCF during round 1 of his tenure with the Knights. So maybe this is the beginning of getting some offensive players. They needed a guy like this. He's really good. Maybe he even comes in and plays early. It would not shock me. Depends on how they want to use him. But screens, reverses, anything underneath, Wortham's not going to be much fun to tackle either. So you don't just have to throw it down the field. He will be a threat no matter where he gets the football in his hand. Tyron Wortham is a very good football recruit. When we come back, Stanford loses another recruit or player to the transfer portal. I expect this to be the edge of the apocalypse for Stanford football as it relates to the portal. I get it that they got Frank Wright coming in, but we're going to discuss that when we come back here on the portal. Daylight savings has snuck up on us again, and if you're feeling that lost hour of sleep, 5-Hour Energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need a little boost to power through. Whether you're staying up late and watching the NCAA tournament, whether you're trying to sneak in some extra golf, maybe you're trying to go out and hang out with your friends late at night, 5-Hour Energy can help you out and make you more refreshed, give you a pick-me-up whenever you need it. For me, it's watching the basketball tournament, and of course, the Final Four is this weekend. If you need to get up and do something, especially after the game late Monday night, maybe Tuesday, 5-Hour Energy can help you out. And also, it's something you can grab on the go from your local convenience store. Maybe you get it from your grocery store, but there's one wherever you need near a checkout line. Head over to 5hourenergy.com and find over 15 flavors to choose from: blue raspberry, peach mango, and a whole bunch others. You can even build your own 12 or 24 pack. If you need one now, again, you can grab one at your local convenience or grocery store. Stock up today and stay energized with 5-Hour Energy. Stanford football gets hit again. Emmett Mosley, the 5th, is not just a good player. He's a guy that has the ability to change games because he's quick, he's twitchy, he's a receiver that Stanford doesn't normally get. He's in the portal. Emmett Mosley, the 5th, is the son of Emmett Mosley. Obviously, he played at Notre Dame in the early to mid-'90s. He was a pretty good player there, and his mom was a Notre Dame athlete as well, so the bloodlines are good. I'd expect him to get a lot of interest from those in the portal. The school I expect most likely would be Southern Cal. His brother, who's a recruit in the class of 26, recently committed to USC. Now, I don't know if the Trojans are going to go that route, but it makes logical sense. Family is from the greater Los Angeles area. Brother's going there next year. We'll see. But I want to give a bigger overall arching theme here to this situation. Mosley is the second guy, and I'm going to do a deep dive in about 3 or 4 days because I expect a few more guys to enter the portal this weekend from Stanford. That's just my opinion. It officially opens on the 16th, but guys can say they're putting their name in the hat early. It doesn't affect anything. They just can't do the paperwork and finalize it yet. But there's going to be a few more. Here's the key on why Stanford players will be more coveted than you might think. These are young men that they typically beat to a different drummer. That is an elite academic school and how they do admissions, how they look at it from getting into the school. Like unless it's changed, there's not one, but there's like 2 essays on the Stanford admissions process. Like they're not playing around. So these kind of kids are more mature and more likely to transition somewhere else. College coaches know that. So just because Stanford hasn't been very good, I guarantee you there's going to be 3 or 4 of these guys we haven't even talked about here on the Portal Podcast that end up at whether it's a Texas, whether it's a Michigan, whether it's a Florida State. I have no idea where. But there are going to be some guys that get more leeway with what they've done on the field because off the field, these are the kinds of young men that you want in your program. Worst case scenario, they're a good backup, they're a good role player, and they're not going to cause you any trouble. I know firsthand from multiple coaches and talking to multiple people in the recruiting industry that also speak to coaches, they're trying to find ways to reduce stress and have fewer guys on their roster and the people around them, they're going to cause them any form of chaos. Low maintenance is another way to look at it. Stanford kids are more likely to be low maintenance. That will increase their value. So just something to think about. We'll see how many more jump in the portal. I expect quite a few. Frank Reich's taken over for the year. And I know Andrew Luck knows him because that was his quarterback when Frank was the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. But he's got a really monumental task. Trying to keep kids on that roster when you lose your head coach in March, that's rough. I don't expect that to go well. And I expect to see not a couple, but several more Stanford football players join the opportunity to get in the portal and make a new home for themselves wherever it's at. A lot of them will probably graduate in the spring. Any guys that do grad transfers, many of these kids, you want the Stanford degree. I get it. So there might be a few more that transfer after the summer. Maybe they got to cram in to get that Stanford degree. That's possible. And then you'll see even more in December. But Stanford's in a lot of hurt because there's no way that you're going to have that much change that quickly and out of the blue and kids not leave. It's unfortunate, but that's college football, and that's what the portal's for. So we'll see how it goes. I expect Stanford to have a bunch of guys that jump in and make it happen. And, oh, by the way, I forgot. Because there's a coaching change, there's actually a window already open, so they are officially allowed in. I'm thinking of it from a traditional standpoint. If your coach changes, it's totally different. You get a 30-day window, if I remember correctly. But either way, you're going to see a bunch of kids from Stanford jumping in. So don't be surprised. Even if it's a spot, your school, whoever you root for, they might be looking at a kid from there because, again, low maintenance, going to be high academics, and they're going to have more talent there than they probably have shown. They did maximize over the last couple of years, but they were rebuilding their roster. Got some good young players, too. So Stanford players could be going anywhere. A lot of them from down south, back east, Midwest, because they recruit nationally. It's really hard to say where everybody will go. Thank you once again for making the Portal Podcast your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to get all your latest recruiting, NIL, and transfer portal news. We will see you again soon. Please like and subscribe.